South Africa's 1996 constitution was canonized as one of the most progressive the world had ever seen. But for decades, that almost sacred reverence helped conceal an uncomfortable reality. The constitutional order was often far more effective at protecting the political establishment than at protecting ordinary citizens from its corruption, its incompetence, and its absolute abuse of power. Now, however, something extraordinary appears to be happening in this country's courts, where a judiciary that once seemed reluctant to confront establishment favorites is suddenly turning against every major center of political power. From Julius Malema being convicted and sentenced to 5 years in prison, to Ramaphosa losing the parliamentary shield protecting him regarding the Phala Phala corruption scandal, and even the DA now suffering a devastating series of legal defeats. All of this points to what I am now going to highlight in today's video. South Africa's courts are undergoing a fundamental realignment, and that the age in which the political elites could confidently rely upon the courts and the judiciary to protect them at any cost may finally be coming to an end. But perhaps the most telling reality of all of this is the very reason why this is happening, because that reason highlights how important this new trend is for each and every one of us ordinary citizens. You see, for the first 3 decades following the ANC's takeover of the country and the introduction of the new 1996 South African Constitution, the courts in this country were, as a very general rule, relatively hesitant about intruding too much into political power affairs. Even in cases where they might have declared a parliamentary decision irrational or legislation even invalid, they would still provide the executive or parliament considerable latitude to repair the defect. For example, in 2005, the Constitutional Court ruled against the then Minister of Home Affairs, Nosiviwe Mapisa Nkakula, on the issue of homosexual marriage. But at the time, they gave Parliament considerable leeway to choose how they were going to remedy what the court at the time described as a legal defect. But more than this, during the time the courts were even reluctant to rule against the government at all, even in cases where potentially severe human rights abuses were being perpetuated by the ANC government. For example, in 2009, judgment in the case between Mazibuko and the city of Johannesburg, the court ruled against the impoverished residents of Phiri, Soweto, who challenged the ANC-controlled municipality's installation of prepaid water meters, which would limit the amount of free water allocated to each household. In that particular case, the Constitutional Court upheld the city's policy and refused to determine a constitutionally required quantity of water that each of them should get for free, reasoning that elected authorities were better placed to allocate limited public resources. The judgment at the time clearly served to protect government actions when it comes to service delivery. Now compare this to the far more interventionist 2005 Ngwathen municipality judgment, where the issue of delivering clean water to residents led to the High Court declaring the ANC-controlled municipality and provincial government had failed in their constitutional obligations to provide clean water for residents. It subsequently ordered the provincial government to completely dissolve the municipal council, appoint an administrator, implement a financial and service delivery recovery plan, and submit sworn progress report to the court every 3 months. But the increased propensity of the courts to rule against the political establishment transcends the issue of service delivery. While the courts had in the past often ruled against figures that had isolated themselves from mainstream media, corporate elites and influential NGOs, such as Jacob Zuma, they were always far more reluctant to rule against politicians with stronger financial and institutional ties to Western global networks, such as, for example, Cyril Ramaphosa and Julius Malema, or even the neoliberal DA, the darling of the Western left-wing elites. Malema, for example, had achieved multiple victories in court prior to 2024, especially with regard to his performance of the song or the chant Kill the Boer, which had been deemed not to constitute hate speech in a 2022 case, for example.
Shoot to kill a man, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer. Brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa,
The Equality Court ruled against AfriForum and found that his performance of the song did not in any way constitute hate speech in its political and historical context. In 2019, Public Protector Busisiwe Mqwebane found that Ramaphosa had deliberately misled Parliament about a 500,000 rands Bosasa donation. Ramaphosa had improperly failed to disclose his CR17 campaign funding, and he had potentially exposed himself to conflicts of interest. In 2020, however, a full bench of the Gauteng High Court set aside her entire report, a judgment that was substantially confirmed by the Constitutional Court in 2021. At the time, Chief Justice Mogoeng provided a dissenting judgment, and Professor Paul Swanepoel, a University of KwaZulu-Natal legal academic, subsequently described the litigation as a missed opportunity to hold the executive to account, especially in the case of corruption. Furthermore, when Ramaphosa then later suspended Mqwebane, only days after her office began investigating his Phala corruption allegations, the Constitutional Court accepted the argument by Ramaphosa's legal team that he had begun considering Mqwebane's suspension way before the Phala scandal even broke, and that he gained nothing by even suspending a public protector that was investigating him for corruption. In the case of the DA, in 2023, the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled in favor of the DA-controlled City of Cape Town in the case of City of Cape Town versus Kumandu, where it overturned a High Court judgment declaring the city's emergency housing program unconstitutional. Yet, over the course of the past 18 months, the courts have dealt serious blows to all of the political elites that it tended to side with in the past. Something has changed in our courts. In May 2025, the Western Cape High Court dismissed Malema's attempt to overturn a finding by Parliament's Ethics Committee concerning his conduct while serving on the Judicial Service Commission. The court upheld Parliament's authority to discipline him and left in place an order requiring him to apologize. Then in August of last year, the Equality Court found that separate statements made by Malema with regards to the Brackenfell incident, where he spoke about killing as part of a revolution, constituted race-based hate speech and a direct incitement of violence. Now, just compare that to just 3 years earlier with the AfriForum case, where AfriForum lost in court on the exact same case against Julius Malema. Now the courts found Malema guilty of hate speech, and this was the Equality Court. And then came an even more serious blow in October 2025, where Malema was found guilty of unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition, discharging a firearm in a built-up area and recklessly endangering people or property. In April 2026, he was even sentenced to 5 years in prison with regards to this case. For the moment, of course, Malema remains free while appealing the conviction and the sentence, but if the sentence is ultimately upheld by a higher court, it would disqualify him from serving in Parliament and bring his political career to an abrupt end as he rots in jail. Moreover, in this process, Malema has lost so much political momentum that even if he manages to stay out of jail, the EFF and his political career are by now dead and buried anyway. But the courts have also become increasingly willing to confront the most powerful man in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the ANC establishment itself. In May of this year, the Constitutional Court even invalidated the parliamentary rule and vote through which the ANC's majority had terminated the Phala impeachment process in December 2022. The court effectively stripped away the procedural protection Parliament had provided Cyril Ramaphosa against his corruption allegations and returned the independent panel's report for constitutional compliant consideration. This did not amount to a finding that Ramaphosa was guilty of corruption, but it reopened an accountability process that the ANC, along with its coalition partners, had used in its parliamentary majority to close. And perhaps the most astonishing reversal has come at the expense of the Democratic Alliance. Remember that in 2023, the Supreme Court of Appeal sided with the DA-controlled city of Cape Town in the Commando case and upheld its emergency housing policy. But in December 2024, the Constitutional Court reversed that judgment, declared the implementation of Cape Town's housing program unconstitutional, and ordered the city to radically reform it. The very policy that received judicial protection in 2023 was condemned by the country's highest court less than 2 years later. And the reality that 2024 in particular marked a turning point in terms of the way in which courts tended to rule against governing political parties, and especially even the DA in the Western Cape, is evident in a series of extremely devastating court judgments against the Democratic Alliance which followed. You see, in April of this year, in the case of the South African Property Owners Association versus the City of Cape Town, one of the cases we reported extensively on this channel, the Western Cape High Court had declared Cape Town's new fixed water sanitation and citywide cleaning charges unlawful and invalid. The court also found that these charges were inconsistent with the Constitution, national legislation, and even the city's own tariff bylaws, forcing the municipal government headed by Jordan Hill-Lewis to revise one of these central components of its budget and saving Cape Townians millions from a draconian rates and taxes that the city of Cape Town had tried to impose on them. And just last month, the Constitutional Court found that the DA-controlled Western Cape government and City of Cape Town had failed to comply with their constitutional obligations to promote equitable access to land. The court rejected their attempt to treat the location of affordable housing as a secondary consideration and required well-located land to be considered part as the meaningful spatial redress. So within an extraordinarily short period, Malema had been subjected to adverse ethics, hate speech, and criminal judgments. Ramaphosa has lost the parliamentary protection or the shield that protected him from renewed scrutiny over Phala corruption allegations. The ANC has been ordered to surrender control of dysfunctional municipalities to a private administrator, and the DA's flagship government in Cape Town has suffered a series of major defeats concerning housing and the municipal tariffs that has been found to be so draconian in the city of Cape Town. Each of these judgments can, of course, be defended on its own legal merits. And of course, there are always some exceptions to the rule. On the highly divisive and pressing matter of immigration, for example, the courts still tended to side with the government's increasingly unpopular open border policy. Yet, when considered all together, the series of court rulings outlined in this video point towards a very clear trend in our judicial system. The judicial doctrines initially developed during the campaign to persecute Jacob Zuma for his corrupt dealings as head of the state are no longer being applied only to politicians who have already been abandoned by the mainstream establishment. The courts now clearly appear increasingly willing to turn those same instruments of constitutional accountability against every major center of political power, including Ramaphosa, Malema, the ANC, and the Democratic Alliance. We here at the Willem Petsche Group are dedicated to bringing you these types of legal analysis that other outlets do tend to ignore. Our commitment to the theory of legal realism, by which we examine court judgments as intrinsically tied to the wider political, institutional, and social context rather than treating them as isolated applications of abstract legal rules, enables us as a group or a research group to identify the fundamental shift in judicial power long before anyone else do. You can help us continue this good work and produce videos and research pieces of this caliber every single day by becoming a patron of our group. Simply follow the easy steps on the banner below and help us become even stronger so that we can have a much bigger impact. But what gave rise to this new phenomenon on our justice system? Well, there are many reasons that can be given for this particular shift. For one, the government of this country is becoming increasingly unpopular by the day, and its incompetence and downright malice towards us, the citizens of this country, are becoming more and more difficult to hide under the veil of constitutional mandates. But perhaps the most encouraging and by far the most consequential reason for this shift in our judiciary is the one that the realist scholar Professor Koos Malan has often pointed out in his works. The reality that courts do not float serenely above politics, but rather reflect the balance of power between competing elites and ideological movements. Now that Pan-Africanist neo-Marxism of the ANC, the EFF, and the EFF is increasingly losing its ideological grip upon South African institutions, the courts that once helped enforce this neo-Marxism is ascendancy may be turning into some of the most powerful instruments for dismantling it. When it comes to legal analysis, we try to keep our viewers informed with regards to their rights in every sphere of life. And in a country where violence is so rampant such as South Africa, one of the aspects we inevitably often touch upon on this channel pertains to the issue of private defense, or better known out there as self-defense. And of course the right to bear arms, which we do not believe we do have in this country as far as we should have it. Check out our recent video on this exact topic by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right here. We do believe you will benefit massively from the information we share in that video. Thanks for tuning in and watching today's video right up until the very end. Please let us know if you are one of the guys that are helping us in this manner. Goodbye and God bless.